It's hard.
Okay, give me back host. Okay, you're a host now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And like I said, I'll stay in for.
Okay. Oh, there's some people coming in. Here we go.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Sherry.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm tired.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh.
I know. Monday always just hits you. Hey, Christine. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it's weird. I'm not getting the emails about classes every time. Are you hearing that? You know,
Yes,
Sharon,
yeah.
have you been hearing that people aren't getting the email for the class? Because I got it from my calendar. It's in my calendar, but the email never came.
The ones we had them check all had been flagged as spam. So there's not an engineering issue with the ones we had. So I just say go in and look at one and just see if it accidentally got marked as spam.
Oh, I will
Because
do
that's
that.
what they've been telling us. So
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
no
Dawn,
problem.
I'm excited to see where you're going to take us today.
Oh, we might listen to some music. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
I love Vern. I remember you from the music class the other day. It was so
Right.
fun.
How you
Hi.
doing?
Hello,
Good.
Vern.
How's
Dawn took us
everybody?
on such a trip
Good.
down memory lane.
Right.
Oh, the music hour.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one. I'll let a few more people come in here. Hi, Robert. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. All right. Now, if anyone have a favorite Beethoven piece that they enjoy listening to?
Two.
Two of
Ninth
them.
and fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like the fifth.
This is great. Any others? He wrote 722 pieces.
Oh.
I don't think we're going to get to all of them today.
Oh, I've got some research to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he wrote a lot. Wrote all kinds of stuff. With hearing and without. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. If anyone has any last minute things for Sharon, she's just going to be here for a little bit. And then she's going to go check out. So grab her while you can. All right, everyone. I want to welcome you to Get Set Up. We're seniors teaching seniors about technology. We also have social hours. Tonight's class, we're going to talk about the life and the music of Beethoven. My name is Donna. I'm your guide tonight. I was in the IT industry for over 30 years. I enjoy helping people get over their fear of technology. And I also majored in music way back in the day. It feels like forever. You can this session is being recorded tonight. You can get a copy of the recording by emailing help@getsetup.io. And we are not paid to promote anyone or anything I'm doing tonight. We're just going to listen to some good music here tonight. So we're going to talk about Beethoven, some of his most famous pieces throughout the period of his life, different periods of his life, and who and what influenced his music, and how losing his hearing affected his music. And I just asked a little while ago if anyone has any favorite Beethoven music. I heard the fifth, the ninth, always good favorites everyone has. Let's start off. He was born in 1770, and he died in 1827. So that puts him right smack dab in the classical period of music. When we put music into different historical periods, the classical period is where he was born. Other artists already in there were Mozart, Haydn, among others. There's quite a few that were in that period of time. This was a big period for music. So he was definitely, someone has some noise in the background. You can go ahead and mute.
I think it's
So-
Verna. Verna's not muted.
Oh, okay. Let me go take a look here. Okay, I think she's muted right now. All right. So he was born in Bonn, Germany. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which way you want to look at it, both his father and his grandfather were musicians. So, there's a little guy called Mozart 20 years before Beethoven. And he was a child prodigy. And, at 6 years old, he did his first concert. And after that, ambitious parents wanted their child to be like Mozart. Well, this is what happened to Beethoven. Both his father was a musician, and when Beethoven was a young child, he was actually beaten to play the piano. He was woken up in the middle of the night and dragged over to the piano to start playing. So it was kind of a rough, childhood. His dad was an alcoholic, and he wanted his son to be just like Mozart. That's what he wanted. And his first public recital was in 1778 at the age of 6, just like Mozart, but Beethoven really was 7. So there was a lot of pressure on Beethoven as a child, dealing with his father, with his grandfather. His grandfather was a more popular musician in Germany. He was he worked for the Count, and he was a court singer. So he was a little more famous, so the people knew him in the area a lot more than his father was. So that was where life started for Beethoven. He did in 1781. He was taken out of regular school, and at the age of 10, he studied under Christian Neff, who was a very good composer at the time in Germany. Beethoven did get piano lessons and violin lessons under his dad. But when he went to Christian, the thing that he learned from him was how to compose music. And this was a big, light bulb moment for Beethoven. Rather than just learning how to play the instrument, he learned how to write music. So he took and ran with that. In 1783, at the age of 12, he published his very first composition. So let me play some of that so you can see what that sounds like. Bring this up. just to give you a little taste of that. I'm going to play a video too while I'm over here, just so you can learn a little bit more about Beethoven's life.
Ludwig von Beethoven was born to a musical family in Bonn, Germany, on December 16, 1770. At the age of 7, he gave his first public piano performance.
Beethoven's father wanted to make Beethoven into a child prodigy a la Mozart, but the whole child prodigy thing never really took off.
In 1783, Beethoven published his first work, 9 Variations on a March by Dressler, and in the following years he continued to earn a living as a musician.
Since his father was totally irresponsible and there were 2 younger brothers, Beethoven helped to support his family by giving music lessons and also by playing in the court orchestra.
In 1792, Beethoven worked under Austrian composer Franz Joseph Haydn, and by the 1800s, his compositions established him as Mozart's successor.
When he was a young man of 25, 27 in the musical capital of Vienna, he had a blazing career as a pianist and also as a composer, and the two dovetailed because he wrote music for himself to play.
Although losing his hearing, Beethoven created some of his greatest masterpieces from 1802 to 1814, including the Appassionata Sonata and his only opera, Fidelio.
When Beethoven was in his mid-30s and discovered that he was losing his hearing, his musical style changed, and he wrote pieces that are often called his heroic works, like the Fifth Symphony and the Emperor Piano Concerto.
Starting in 1815, Beethoven's personal life unraveled, and his work slowed tremendously.
After the death of one of Beethoven's brothers, Beethoven succeeded in adopting his nephew, and there were tremendous court battles. All of this led to a less productive period in Beethoven's compositional output.
By 1819, Beethoven was completely deaf, but his composing experienced a rebirth, marked by some of his most renowned works, including the Missa Solemnis and his Ninth Symphony.
As the deafness increased to the point where he could no longer perform in public, he wrote pieces for a theoretical other, not for himself, and this was a big point of departure. He was writing for the future, and this had never happened before.
Beethoven died on March 26, 1827, and had a public funeral with over 20,000 people mourning his loss.
Beethoven's music, and in some ways his personality and the legends and myths around him, fundamentally changed really how we think about music.
Today, Beethoven's enduring work continues to be played worldwide, from the Olympics to films, and even during the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Beethoven was unique among composers of his day in that he believed that music had not only an entertainment value, but also a moral and humanistic value. His music was not only going to be enjoyed by people, but that it was going somehow or other to help humanity in some way to emerge from the darkness into the light.
All right. So at one point, Beethoven did go to Vienna. Mozart was holding a little competition. And Mozart was about 16 years older than Beethoven. And so he had this competition, and Beethoven was still, I think he was maybe 12 or 14 when he went there, played piano. And Mozart just said, "Oh, that kid, someday they're going to know about him." So it's kind of funny that. So he, they think he did actually meet Mozart at some point in time. Of course, like they said in the video, Beethoven's mom died around this time. He had to help take care of the family. And then when he got the funds, they got a little stipend from the government in Germany. He was able to take care of the family. And then he headed off to Vienna. So his Vienna years were 1792 to 1802. This is where he had, he was a big concert performer. He was a virtuoso pianist. All the nobility loved him. He got commissions to write works. And so he was always composing and at the same time performing. He studied under Haydn. So he learned the styles of both Haydn and Mozart. So his early works were influenced by them. Now, he did change the Van Beethoven to von to sound, because von was what the nobility used in between their names. So he was trying to, look like he had some nobility to his name. He did mainly piano works during this time. He was starting to lose his hearing, and he always was trying to hide it. He was just devastated. They really don't know what was wrong with him. They think maybe he had typhus or he had, some type of, fever or something that was going on around at the time that caused his hearing to go. It was not an instant thing, though. It was a gradual. He had tinnitus, and he had the gradual losing of he lost the high notes. So as he composes through his life, you will see that the notes the pitch is lower and lower in the pieces that he's writing, because that's what he can hear. He can't hear the higher notes as he gets older. So important works in this period of time. Let's listen to a couple of them here. Put these in alphabetical order. We'll start with the first symphony and listen to a little bit of this. This is the Symphony number 1 in C major. It started from the beginning. Now, if you're used to listening to Haydn or Mozart, you'll notice that this is a lot of the same styling, the orchestral music. Let's listen to a little bit of Symphony Number 2, which was also composed around this time. So that was the Second Symphony. And I'd like to play for you one of the sonatas. This is another one that was done around the same period that these were, and down in the Vienna years. So you can get a feel for some of his piano. Let me start this one from the beginning.
I don't hear anything.
Can people hear?
Not hearing anything.
Oh, okay, hold on. Can you hear that? Can you hear that okay?
I can hear it. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, sorry about that. When will I learn, huh?
Technology. Can't see it.
You can't see it?
I can't.
Okay, hold on here.
Yeah, it's just a big gray rectangle now.
Okay, let me redo the share. Something went kapooey here. We'll go back in. Okay, you can see this, right?
Correct.
Yes.
to give you a little taste of that, because he really only did 9 symphonies and he had 722 pieces he composed. He composed violin concertos, he did quartets, quintets, it's like string quartets, that type of thing. He composed for all different types of music. So I just wanted to let you see a little bit of what he did. As far as the piano side, a lot of piano music. So let's talk about another thing to mention while he was in Vienna. In 1802, he made his brother kind of like his business manager. Beethoven, he wasn't rich. He came from very humble, beginnings, but he did well in music. Between the performances, the commissions he got to write music, and the licensing deals he did pretty well for himself. What he did with his brothers, when someone commissioned to do a piece of work for him, he would have them pay for a certain amount of time that they would have exclusive rights to that music. And then at a certain point, he would publish the music, and then it would become published and it would start being performed on stages, and he would perform it himself and that type of stuff. So he was really a smart businessman, as just doing this type of thing. It's not really, you don't hear about that before this, having this type of arrangement. So this guy, he's kind of like the early lawyer for musicians, getting your licensing deals. So we get to 1802 to 1812. They call it the heroic period. In 1802, he moved to Helgenstadt, which is a small town outside of Vienna, because he was having, with the issues with his hearing. The doctor recommended that he got out of the city and went out to, to a quiet place. I don't know if they were doing testing on his hearing or what, but he wrote a testament. It was called the Helgenstadt Testament. And this was a document that he wrote it to his brother. He was talking about the desperation he had about losing his hearing. It's the worst possible thing for a musician is to lose their hearing. And how he contemplated suicide. And, it's just this real heartfelt letter that he wrote to his brother. And then he spent a few months outside of Vienna. And finally, towards the end of this whole testament that he wrote, he finally come to terms that now that he was going to write in a different way in the music, that he decided that he wanted to live, he wanted to keep writing music. And when he returned to Vienna, basically he had told his friends, I'm done with the way, I've been doing the music up to this point, and I'm going to do it a new way. And that is where he transitioned classical music to the Romantic period for the music history. So he was a transitional character, shall we say. Everyone has them, even in art history. You'll have these artists who are in a period of time and they're doing what everyone else is doing. And then something happens and they decide we're going a different way. And that's what Beethoven did. And he changed the way music was now, being played more for emotion, for telling a story, which is the Romantic period of music. And he kind of forged away. And this is what happened. So his first piece in this new style was his Third Symphony. But first, I want to play for you a little video that talks about this testament that he wrote and some other things about Mozart, the man.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Beato. In today's Everything Music, we're going to talk about 5 things that you didn't know about Ludwig van Beethoven. Number 1, Beethoven was born into a family of musicians that was at least 2 generations in the making. His father, Johann, was a court composer and tenor and was also a violent alcoholic. He even went so far as to lie about Beethoven's age, saying he was born in 1772 instead of 1770 so that he would appear younger in his performances. Despite having a very abusive parent, Beethoven grew to love music and became one of the greatest composers in history. Number 2, did Beethoven and Mozart ever meet? Well, Beethoven traveled from Bonn to Vienna, where Mozart lived, in 1787. Now, Bonn and Vienna are about 450 miles apart. He was there for a short period of time, maybe about 6 weeks. There have been many accounts related to this that say that they did meet, that Beethoven had some lessons from Mozart, but it's never really been established whether they met. One thing is for sure, Mozart's influence on Beethoven lasted throughout his life. In fact, there was a passage from Mozart's 40th Symphony that was written into Beethoven's sketchbook while he was working on his own 5th Symphony. Number 3, Beethoven began going deaf around 1796 when he was just 25 years old. What began as buzzing and ringing in the ears eventually increased to total deafness around 1816. In 1802, Beethoven was at a breaking point in his life. When on a retreat to Heiligenstadt, just outside Vienna, he wrote the famous Heiligenstadt Testament, which was a letter written to his 2 brothers, Karl and Johann, on October 6, 1802. Beethoven writes, "But think that for 6 years now I've been hopelessly afflicted, made worse by senseless physicians from year to year, deceived with hopes of improvement, finally compelled to face the prospect of a lasting malady, whose cure will take years or perhaps be impossible. Though born with a fiery, active temperament, even susceptible to the diversions of society, I was soon compelled to withdraw myself to live a life alone. If at times I tried to forget all this, oh, how harshly I was flung back by the doubly sad experience of my bad hearing. Yet it was impossible for me to say to people, 'Speak loud or shout, for I am deaf.' Oh, how could I possibly admit an infirmity in the one sense which ought to be more perfect in me than others, a sense which I once possessed in the highest perfection, a perfection such as few in my profession enjoy or have ever enjoyed. Oh, I cannot do it. Therefore forgive me when you see me draw back when I would have gladly mingled with you." He went on to say, "But what a humiliation for me when someone standing next to me heard a flute in the distance and I heard nothing, or someone heard a shepherd singing and again I heard nothing. Such incidents drove me almost to despair. A little more of that and I would have ended my life. It was only my art that held me back. Ah, it seemed impossible to leave the world until I had brought forth all that I felt was within me. So I endure this wretched existence." Number 4, which is possibly the greatest concert of all time. This is actually a real thing that happened. On December 22nd, 1808, Beethoven, acting as promoter, conductor, and concert pianist, staged a remarkable concert in Vienna's Theater an der Wien, which premiered several of the most influential works in music history. The concert was held in a very cold concert hall, which was approximately 4 hours in length and featured the public premieres of Beethoven's 5th and 6th symphonies, the 4th Piano Concerto, and the Choral Fantasy, which featured orchestra, chorus, vocal soloists, and Beethoven as piano soloist. So part 1 of the concert began with the premiere of his 6th Symphony, the Pastoral in F major. Beautiful, beautiful piece. This was followed by A Perfido, a concert aria for soprano and orchestra. Next was the Gloria from the Mass in C major for vocal soloist, chorus, and orchestra. And part 1 concluded with the premiere of Beethoven's 4th Piano Concerto, which is possibly one of the greatest concertos of all time. Certainly my favorite piano concerto of all time. This was just part 1. So after the intermission was the premiere of Beethoven's 5th Symphony. Then this was followed by the Sanctus for the Mass in C major. Next was a Fantasia, an improvised Fantasia by Beethoven. This is after he'd already played the entire 4th Piano Concerto in the first half of the concert. We're talking, 3 hours into this. Then the concert concluded with the premiere of the Choral Fantasy for piano soloist, vocal soloist, chorus, and orchestra. This was the greatest concert of all time. And number 5. As his deafness progressed, Beethoven tended to use the middle and low frequency notes in his compositions because he could hear them better when writing and performing his music. When he became deaf and completely reliant on his inner ear for composing, he was no longer compelled to create music that he could actually hear when performed. You can see a change in his compositional style as well as his orchestrations. Some of his greatest works from this third or late period of compositions, these included works such as the last 5 piano sonatas, including the famous Hammerklavier, or the last 5 string quartets, or the Ruins of Athens overture and incidental music, the Diabelli variations for piano, the Great Mass Missa Solemnis, which is generally considered to be one of Beethoven's supreme achievements, and like Bach's Mass in B minor, one of the most significant Mass settings of all times. And lastly, the Ninth Symphony, which features the Ode to Joy. It was completed in 1824, 3 years before Beethoven's death, and is one of the best known works in classical music, and almost universally considered to be one of the greatest compositions in Western music. Just imagine the kind of mind it took to create a piece of this scope with nothing more than his inner ear to perform it. Beethoven was not only one of the greatest composers of all time, he was also one of the greatest minds.
So when he started his new style, this was a very productive period for him. In just this short amount of time, he recreated from Symphony 4 to 8, he did them all right during this time. He did many more sonatas. This Appassionata sonata was done at this time. Let's listen to a little bit of the, I know everyone wants to hear the 5th, so why don't we go to the 5th symphony. Oh, we got to get to the, there we go. Hate to stop that one. That's a good one. So yeah, he started creating everything at this point. He just had a whole new outlook on life. There's the Immortal Beloved. And anyone seen that movie? It was in the 90s. He wrote a 10-page love letter, and they believe it was Antoinette Brentano is the recipient of it. There's been a lot of speculation on who it was. He had many different women that he was involved with. Unfortunately, he fell in love with two countesses, and since he was a commoner, they had nothing to do with him. And he proposed to Therese, and she turned him down. So his love life was not good. He stayed a bachelor his whole life. He did have a custody battle for his brother's son, which he did finally. He did raise the son, but as far as having anyone, he was alone his whole life.
I
So
saw the movie, Donna. I highly recommend it. I learned so much.
Yeah, that's a good one, because they show a scene with him with his ear to his piano. Because the last, when he finally had lost most of his hearing, or all of it, he would have a pencil in his mouth, and he would hold it down on the piano to feel the vibration. He would put his ear to the piano. They also say he had sawed off the legs on a piano, and he'd lay on the floor with his ear to the wood floor to feel the vibration from the piano on the floor. So he went to great lengths to try to continue composing. They say he probably had perfect pitch, because they think that if he didn't have perfect pitch, it'd been really hard for him to continue composing, not being able to hear the music. So that might be what he had. His last performance was in 1814. He had several years after that where he had these inflammatory fevers, they were calling him. He was being in and out of being sick. So he had about 4 years where he really didn't produce much. And he wrote they call them conversation books, and they learned a lot about Beethoven, because when he was meeting with his friends, he couldn't hear them, so they would write in these books, these conversations, so they could find out what he thought about, life and politics and everything around him, and the conversations he had with anyone that was famous. All this stuff was put into these books, so they had a lot of documentation of his conversations. And during this period, once he felt a little bit better, he had one more spurt of energy before he died in 1823. He wrote that Miso Solemnis Mass, the Ninth Symphony, and the Diabelli Variations. He just had this last spurt.
Miso Solemnis.
Yeah, the Miso Solemnis, and before he died on March 26, 1827. So let's listen a little bit to the Ninth Symphony. Take a look at this one.
Donna, have you heard it in person?
Oh, I've played it. I've been there. I used to play cello, so I've done the fifth and
Oh
ninth.
my God! Yeah, I can't even imagine being on stage, because being in the audience is so amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would sit, depending on which, different parts of my life when, what orchestra was in.
What did you play, Donna?
I played cello. I did play in one orchestra trumpet at one point. That was, I think, the last one I played in. I didn't own a cello at that time. So I'm going to go into the ninth right before the Ode to Joy plays. The thing with the ninth, he did all his symphonies without any choral music. And in the ninth, he felt that he had just said everything he could say, and then he put in Ode to Joy at the very end of the Ninth Symphony, which has quite an effect, having all of a sudden this chorus start singing at the very end of the symphony. Unfortunately, I have to stop it there. Hate to stop it, but I'm going to send you the links to the pieces that we looked at today, so you guys can enjoy it.
That at the end?
Pardon?
What orchestra was that at the end?
Oh, I don't know.
Doing the ninth.
Chicago. It's all a mixture of different ones. Yeah. Yeah. So you'll get the links. Lil, we going to say something? Oh.
I was just appreciating you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, me too.
Will you have a part two?
Encore, encore.
I know you could really do a part two with him. I would like to do some of the other composers too, to talk
Will
about
you do
them.
Mozart?
Oh yes, I think we should probably do him next. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
We have Bach coming up. Bach is a big one. Beethoven is important because he transitioned us from one period to the next. He really is, and you can hear the difference in the earlier symphonies and then the later. The change that he made was profound on music.
Donna, what orchestra?
I'm sorry. Do you have Vivaldi on the list?
Oh, of course. And Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky will rip your heart out.
Donna, did you say the Immortal Beloved? They made a movie out of it.
Yes.
Did you say that? Oh,
That's the name of the movie. It's fabulous.
Okay. Yeah, I want to see if I can get it.
It's on Pluto, maybe. Because I want to watch it again. I know I watched it years ago.
It's been
There's
out
one
a
on.
long time. No, you shouldn't have any problem getting it, even from the library.
They did a group of them during that period of time. They did one on Chopin, and they did, of course, Amadeus. Remember Amadeus? They
Did
did
you
a
say it
group
was
of
on
those.
Pluto? Did you say Pluto?
I think it was on Pluto TV. I think I saw it there for free. It might have been Pluto or
But
one.
check with your library because it's likely you get it there. Netflix. It's been out a long time.
Yeah, just search around. You can find it. But that talks about the infamous 10-page love letter, and it was found after he died. So they're trying to figure out who this Immortal Beloved was. Yeah, everybody loves a love story. But then,
Dear Donna, huh?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to send you a link on. There's a Wikipedia link that has all of the pieces he performed. I'll have not performed, but wrote 722 of them.
Maybe he was dating online and he was using it as a form letter.
There you go. I know. It makes you wonder, like, what these people would be like if they lived in our time.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez. What would Beethoven think of, Beyonce?
Oh, I'm sure he would like watching and listening to her. No
Probably.
doubt about it.
He probably
Who
would.
wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
I know. It's amazing just, the way the music has transformed over the, centuries. So, all right.
Donna. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night. We'll see you next time. Have a great evening. Take care.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.